Inside Out series. What is this about? I think you recall we had a webinar at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the year actually, in which we talked about a 5-step formula to mitigate as much as you can from the cyber danger, right? Now, in this particular formula, we also talked about entry points. And one of the biggest entry points that is leveraged and was leveraged and will be leveraged in the future is vulnerabilities via software, even via hardware at the same time. So that's why patch management made itself the first one on the list for this particular Inside Out series. The purpose with this session is the following: to take you guys that handle patching from this, right? Seeing all the data, all the scores, all the vulnerabilities, trying to watch 20 screens at the same time, and to move you guys to a position such as this, right? Being comfortable, being relaxed, and not stressing about patch management, because at the end of the day, if something is stressing us, it might mean that there might be a better and easier option to do it. Now, as mentioned, this is the 5-step formula that I was talking about, right? And if you guys did not see this webinar, which is the first one we had this year, it's up on our YouTube page. You can just email me or ping me on LinkedIn, and I can give you the link to it. But it's on our YouTube page, so you could find it. Basically, if you want to have a better cyber defense, you need to take care of 5 main things. Mitigate entry points as much as possible. There's no perfect way of doing this. There will always be a new entry point that you need to mitigate. But if you mitigate the majority of them, you're safe. Deploy fierce reactive security, ensure reliable visibility, then effective actionability based on that visibility, and last but not least, enforce or mitigate the human factor in the equation. So today we're going to be looking at one of the things that Heimdal does. However, this is not vendor specific. You guys can achieve the things that we talk about today with a vendor agnostic approach. So we will be looking at mitigating entry points, and the first one, patching the vulnerabilities. Now, you know how I like to approach things. Let's take it from the core of the matter. Now, going through the agenda, right? We're going to talk about what is patching and why does it matter. What happens when patching is done poorly or not done at all? How is patching done? What are the pros of doing it good, and what are the cons of doing it wrong? Ideal way of patching, of course, which is again vendor agnostic, guys. So we're not trying to just limit to what we do. We're trying to literally help you guys enhance whatever you're using right now. Key takeaways, Q&A segment, and I have a bonus for you guys. I will extend the 1-hour session a bit, about 20-25 minutes. This is optional. It's not mandatory for the purpose of the webinar, right? And I will do a walkthrough of Heimdal's patch and asset management module if we have people that are curious, right? Even if only one person remains in the audience with me, I will do that walkthrough. Now, this is again not mandatory for the session itself. So if you're just here for the theory part and understanding best practices in patch management, when we hit that marker, you're free to go. You already got the full value of the session. This is just a bonus. Now, before going further, I also need to do some quick housekeeping, right? So questions are more than welcomed along the way. So you don't need to wait until the Q&A. We do have a designated Q&A time, but questions are more than welcomed along the way. Luke is asking, is this session registered? Yes, Rook, it is. So we are recording it and it's going to be on YouTube, but on YouTube, I will not put the walkthrough, right? I will just put the session itself. If somebody wants the walkthrough, contact me separately and I'll give it to you guys. So most active participants will be added in a random.org extraction for a Heimdal Premium Home license. You need to go in the post-webinar form for that, and there's an option saying, I want to be registered for a chance to win a Heimdal license. Post-webinar feedback is very important for me. This is where you can talk to me, you can book a meeting with me, book a demo, You can also say what you think about the session. And first of all, you can help me improve this for you. So please do feel free to help me with this, because then you're helping me, helping you further. The extended segment is just a bonus. It's not mandatory, as mentioned. And LinkedIn connections, chats, emails are more than welcome. So please feel free to push this way if you want to talk about something. Now, since this is a public webinar, and since we have so many names in here that I literally see for the first time in my life, I also need to tell you guys who is Heimdal. So Heimdal is a Denmark-based cybersecurity company, which is global as a presence. We are currently selling and offering 10 cybersecurity products based on endpoint directly, and also on network in some cases. And with these 10 products, we're currently servicing 11,000 customers plus globally. And this is just businesses, not taking in consideration retail customers, right? We also have that, but that's not the focus today. Now, you know what we're going to talk about today. You know what's my aim, right, with today's session. You know who Heimdal is. You need to know one last thing. Who am I and what makes me eligible to talk to you guys today? So my name, and you can recognize me in the picture. I'm wearing literally the same outfit. My name is Andrei. I've been with Heimdal for 4.5 years plus right now. I've been in over 5,000 cybersecurity meetings because I've worked in sales, support, sales, channel management, pre-sales coordination, head of pre-sales, and now I'm here talking with you guys. If you want to connect with me, that's my contact over there. You have the LinkedIn, you also have the email. Please feel free to do so. Again, in the webinar form, you have an option to talk more. You can book a meeting with me. Just mark that box and I'll come back to you and we can set this up. But getting back to the topic of the conversation, I hope I didn't bore you guys too much. Let's get on with it. In order to talk about patching, we need to understand two key elements, right? Two key definitions. What's patching and what's patch management? These are two different things. One is related to the other. So when we talk about patching, a patch is a set of changes to a computer program, right? Or it's supporting data that will basically change. It's designed to change, like update, fix, or improve the functionality of that particular program. Now, when we talk about patch management, now this is where it changes a bit. Patch management is the entire process that you have around these updates, the process that you have for maintaining a computer or a network by performing regular updates, patch deployments. So if we know what's the basic of this, let's see why is this important. We have three main reasons for which this is important. The first reason is performance. Now, if you don't have your software up to date, it's like having your phone with the first version of Android or iOS. It will not give you the performance that everybody has. You can also fix vulnerabilities, which is one of the things that we will dive deeper in today. And last but not least, you can fix so-called bugs. When people mention a bug, this is basically a flaw of the product that was not by design in any way. And this bug fix is an update that is aimed to repair this. Now, going further, let's look at what happens if you don't do patching or you don't do it properly. So taking the three elements of the importance of patching and reversing them, right? So you will have lack of performance, lack of latest features. You might also have buggy software, which is software not doing the job it was supposed to do, the job you paid it or you're using it for. And the biggest problem, and this is the core of today's discussions, you will have vulnerabilities in your system. A vulnerability is an open door inviting attackers in. And we all know what happens when we have open doors like this. So let's see some situations in which these vulnerabilities have costed the world so much. First one, we have WannaCry, and I'm starting with this one because it literally affected more than 1/5 of a million machines across the majority of countries on this globe in less than a weekend, right? And the losses were plus $4 billion in losses. And this was in 2017, not recent, 2017. So how did this happen? There was a patch available for a vulnerability for 2 months already when this ransomware storm took the globe. So 2 months, guys, 2 months. And if we look at this vulnerability, right, and this exploit called Eternal Blue, this was the exploit at the base of WannaCry. If you look at all the other attacks that have been leveraging this, you would add another $10 billion in losses by Petya and NotPetya, which happened after WannaCry. All of them leveraging the same vulnerability. So basically, this tells us that people still didn't update their stuff after this happened, which is a problem. Let's look at some other attacks. We have the US voter registry system, in which almost 200 million voter records were compromised by unpatched systems. Then we have Target data breach. This is the Target company. Their data breach, a bit over 100 million records compromised. Then we have the Equifax data breach, which was one of the biggest data breaches in the world that people are still talking about right now. Over 600 million records compromised. Then the next one, Marriott data breach, 500 million records compromised. And by the way, the Marriott one is very funny. They bought some systems and those systems were not patched. So this was not their regular coverage of patch management because they were doing that already. What they failed to do is scan those new systems for vulnerabilities. And when buying those, that would be a direct channel. That was a direct channel for the attackers to come in. And we have Luke coming with a question. Sometimes it's better to wait before installing a new version because the new version can be more unsecure. What do you think? We will actually talk about that. I will not spoil the surprise. When we talk about the ideal way of patching, we will cover that, Luke, I promise. But very good point over there. Okay, next we have the biggest ransomware payout in history so far. CNA Financial got ransomware due to unpatched browser. So basically, one of their employees patched their browser with an exploit patch, meaning somebody dressed the update of, I believe it was Google Chrome or something like that, and they pushed the exploit via the update itself. And that's what made CNA Financial pay the biggest ransomware payout in the world until today, or at least the biggest official one. We don't know if there was anything else bigger on below the radar, right? But they literally paid $40 million as a ransom. And now I have one last item to put on the page, right? Please look at the top of the page right now. We have started with WannaCry, with a vulnerability that was exploited across the world, right? And it was 2 months old as a vulnerability, right? Now, let me show you this attack. This is a recent one. This is Nevada ransomware, guys. You might have heard of it. We also talked a bit about it in the Detonating Ransomware webinar, I believe last month or something, yeah. Basically, guys, this is WannaCry all over again because the attackers have leveraged internet-facing VMware servers that had a 2 years old vulnerability. So it's not a 2-month vulnerability, it's a 2-year-old vulnerability that was not patched on these VM servers, these internet-facing VM servers. Of course, it did not cover as many machines across the world because it was not targeting only machines, it targeted only servers, right? But 5,000 servers around the world kind of makes up for 200,000 machines in total around the world. Also, Nevada ransomware restricted its attacks, so countries such as Russia, Iran, and some others were not targeted in any way. I believe the count would have been triple or something like that. So now we know what can go wrong if we don't patch or if we don't have a proper patch management processes. Again, lack of performance, buggy software, and vulnerabilities. These are the things that we need to stay away from because we're talking from a cybersecurity perspective today, right? Now, let's see some other interesting things. I made the chart over here. You know I like charts. And if you don't know by now, you'll see in this session, I like charts, right? Data is the key. So let's put some data on this chart. So we have on the vertical scale, number of detections year over year, right? A CVE is a vulnerability that is declared globally, right? So these are vulnerabilities that could attract attacks. And we have 2017 up until 2022. So in 2017, we had shy of 15,000 vulnerabilities. What happened in 2018? In 2018, we went above 15,000, about 16 and something. Now in 2019, we went a bit more, right? Going closer to the 20K mark. 2020, we were almost at the 20K mark. 2021 went just a bit about the 20K mark. And now, guys, this is the nice question. What do you think 2022 showed us in regards to vulnerabilities? And if you Google this, you will find this fast. How many CVEs were present on the globe detected in 2022? This is an interesting one. Approximately 25K. And guys, you are right. It's a bit over 25K. It's 26 and something already. So unfortunately, as much as software vendors want to stay away from vulnerabilities, they cannot, because things are moving at such a fast pace, and people, like, you know how we release the product updates. We release monthly. So it's almost an impossible job to not have vulnerabilities. And fortunate for us, we kind of stay away of vulnerabilities because, again, we are a cybersecurity company, but other people have a tough job in doing that. So thank you guys for answering. Now, let's look at a few of these 2022 vulnerabilities that are more interesting, right? So let's move the chart differently and let's look at some vulnerabilities, guys. So in 2022, I'm gonna come with a 2021 vulnerability as the first one. It was December 2021, and this is log4j or log4shell. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was a global panic when this appeared. Now, what happens with this one? This was literally the most exploited and debated vulnerability since it appeared until even today. Right now, this situation, this particular vulnerability had 500 plus exploits. Now, let me take a step back and let me explain what's the difference. A vulnerability is a gap in the software that allows an exploit to take effect on the computer. So the exploit is the malicious code, the malicious injection that leverages the vulnerability to get in your system. So literally, this one is one of the most exploited vulnerabilities in all history, right? Now, what this does, this allows critical remote code execution via HTTP requests, and this has affected since December 2021 until today over 3 billion devices across the globe. So that's why it's key to stay ahead of these and be informed all the time when any vulnerability comes up. Now, the next one that we're going to talk about is Google, because if you look at it, the first vendor in the world that shows vulnerabilities and the most vulnerabilities found is Microsoft. And it's normal, right? They have, such a vast software offering. that it's impossible not to have vulnerabilities. Excuse me for a second. Then the second one is Google. Now, with this particular vulnerability, just 1 to 3 exploits were found, but this was the 7th zero-day vulnerability that Google actually posted in 2022. And this one allows arbitrary code execution without user interaction. Now, the next one that I want to show you guys is Microsoft Exchange privilege escalation. 70+ exploits found, allows remote code execution in F5 firewalls via HTTP requests and enabling control, remote control. Then we also have F5 big IP control, REST RCE. And actually the Microsoft Exchange privilege, I have some wrong information on this page. That one allows you to raise yourself to admin while in a computer without getting interfered by the security system. This one is the one that allows F5 firewall control via HTTP requests. So basically you put firewall as a defense, they disarm it directly via HTTP request, enabling them to remotely control all the settings in your firewall. And last but not least, guys, Microsoft Follina, which was again a very, very discussed vulnerability in 2022. This one had over 100 exploits, and it allowed remote code execution such as install, view, modify, delete without the need of escalating rights. So it could do that without even you needing admin rights on that computer. So people that said, okay, I don't have admin rights on my computers, or my customers, if I'm talking to a partner, doesn't have admin rights, well, with this particular vulnerability, they wouldn't need admin rights. They would do it anyway. So guys, I just wanted to show you these. I just took the top 5 that were discussed in the world, because it's important to see exactly what's out there, right? And this is just underlines the importance of a proper patch management process. Just that I don't want to scare you guys, right? Because you can just go on the internet and get that. That's not my purpose here. Now let's see some fun information, right? So now it's interaction time. Let's have fun together. I'll put a question, answer, and source, right? And the person that gets the closest to the response or touches the response gets a Heimdal Home Premium license. So let's see. First question for you guys. What do you think the mean time to remediation is around in days? Basically from a patch being available, a vulnerability being exposed, in how many days does an organization repair that particular vulnerability? We have Simon saying 14. We have 7 days, 60 days, okay, 80 days, 14 days. Okay, cool. Come on, anybody else wanting to guess? 40 days, okay. 65. We have 2 people being very close. So let's see. Okay, I am gonna closing. I have an interesting question. Depending if you use Heimdal, we don't talk about the vendor part. You can use whatever you want. So we have 2 winners: the people that said 60 and the people that said over 40. So let me see exactly. We have Carl once saying 40 days, and we have Paul saying 60 days. So Carl and Paul, let me make a note over here. You guys are the winners of this question. So you'll get the certificate maximum in 24 hours, depending on the session times, right? Okay, next question for you guys. And by the way, this is by EdgeScan and InfoSec Institute. How much % of all the vulnerabilities discovered in all time are flagged as critical? This means the impact score is between 9 and 10. And by the way, guys, this is in percentage. Okay, so we have 35, 8%, 27%, 80%, 16%, 10%, 45, 8, 10%. Okay, so stopping the questions. Now we have two winners that said 10%. 10%, it's a close approximation, 10% by CVE Details, which is a website that I would actually advise you guys to check it, right? It compiles all this particular data. CVE Details will show you exactly year over year, all the data by vendor, by whatever you want to see, right? So by CVE Details, we know that this is 10%. So the winners are Carl and Amy. Carl, you won the other one, so this is gonna go to Amy. But thank you for voting again. Next question. On average, how many days before a CVE is published does the exploit appear? So CVE is the global, let's say, notification that this problem exists. Exploit means somebody is already leveraging that vulnerability to get in your computers. So we have 7 days, 9 days, 45 days, 10, 15, 5, 14, 14 days, okay? 5 days, 20 days. Let's see, anybody else wants to pitch in? 10 days. Okay, we're closing the vote. 14, 3 days. Okay, guys, it is 23 days, and this is sourced via Palo Alto Networks. Let's see, who was the closest over here? By the way, somebody says, Carl, you are using ChatGPT to get your answers. By the way, guys, I don't know if you noticed, ChatGPT has been used to make a polymorphic malware that is spreading across the globe as we speak. If you're curious to hear about it, I can share the article with you guys. So ChatGPT is helping us, but it's also making some problems for us. Okay, so the winner on this one is, since we have 23 days, we had somebody that said 20 days. Okay, so Ron, you are the winner. You said 20 days. Okay, and guys, I have a bonus. Maybe we have people that didn't get to win the license, so I have a bonus. A bonus question. Let's see. What is the year-over-year change in percentage for critical vulnerabilities? So what's the percentage of this year's current critical vulnerabilities versus last year's critical vulnerabilities? Again, this is in percentage. We have 25, 40, 20, 24, 15, 15, okay, 30, 25. Go higher, guys, go higher. 18, 23%, 15, okay, 40%. Let's see, 59, and somebody is an expert at using Google or ChatGPT. Torben, you're winning the license. It's 59%, and this is by techstack.technology. So techstack.technology made an analysis, and they saw that there was a year-over-year change of 59% in critical vulnerabilities, meaning scored with 9 or 10 impact score, meaning if you don't update that, you might actually get a very, very dangerous attack. So Torben, you're the winner on this one. Thank you guys for the interactivity. I really love when the sessions are interactive. It's very boring not to see you guys speaking back to me, so thank you, appreciate it. So guys, let's see the two ways or the mix of ways that people are doing patching with right now. So we're gonna again do something funny. I don't know if you remember this from school, but in school when we were young, they were giving us two columns and they were asking us to match the columns, right? So think about the left column as being bad approaches to patching, and think about the right column as being the ideal approaches to patching. Let's match them. When we would have reactive patching, what could actually be the better way of doing our patching? Let's look in the other column and let's decide on what do we need to change reactive with so that we can actually get get a better and more healthy patch management process. Kent, proactive, thank you. So reactive needs to change to proactive. This means you don't wait until somebody puts a CVE out there, or you don't wait until people are attacked around the globe. You need to have, and I'm gonna spoil, I'm not gonna spoil this. We're gonna talk about it when we look at the best practices in patching. So next one, siloed patching, meaning patching per categories, per departments, and so on, per computer types, and so on. What could we change siloed with? And we do have people saying holistic. Thank you, Jens. Thank you, Kent. Exactly. So when it comes to siloed patching, we need to change it with holistic patching. Next one, network focused, meaning you need to have your computers on the network or via VPN so that they get patched. Is this enough in today's world? Do we have remote users all over the place, maybe not using VPN? A computer outside of VPN, isn't it actually a victim until it gets on the VPN and gets its patch? So we need to change it. Thank you, Per. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Torben. We need to change it to endpoint centric, not network centric, because it's not enough anymore. Things are changing and we need to change at the same pace with them. Otherwise, we will fall behind, unfortunately. Then manual, and this one is easy, goes to automated. And last but not least, intermittent patching needs to go to continuous patching. We cannot afford to be intermittent with our patching, because at the end of the day, we don't need something that desires more work for us and generates more work. We need to have something continuous and automated as much as possible. Thank you, guys. This was a fun one. So now, let's see, what are the things that might be generated if we do patching the wrong way? It's gonna be a waste of time and it's gonna be stressing for everybody. It's gonna need an army of people, which is something that we're lacking in cybersecurity and in IT right now. It's gonna need computers to be on your network, which is not happening, unfortunately. A lot of computers are unpatched because they didn't touch the network VPN for 30 or 60 days. And last but not least, it's gonna present vulnerabilities in your computer. It's gonna break your defense, right? But if we look on the other side, if we do patching in the right way, we will be very calm. We will not be stressed at all. Then the next one, we don't need an army of people. We can have a handful of people handling this and they will not have a problem with that. We have computers only connecting to the internet, which happens all day long, so we don't need them on the network. And last but not least, our security will be as strengthened as possible by not presenting vulnerabilities, reducing that attack surface close to zero when it comes to vulnerabilities. Of course, there's no perfect solution, right? So at the end of the day, you might still have 1-2 vulnerabilities out there, but 1-2 reduces greatly the chances from 100 or so on and so forth. You noticed how many CVEs were pushed out in 2022, over 25, almost 26K. So yeah, all of those could be vulnerabilities for us. Now, we had fun with the interaction part. Now let's also look at the ideal way of doing patching, guys. So this is basically the core of this particular webinar. So we're gonna start with the key element. What is the actual step of patching? Deploying the update to a production system. But I want to ask you a question. Do you think this is the first step in the process? Let's see a yes and no in the chat or question area. Paul says no. Thank you, Paul. It is not. Okay, Per says test environment first, which is great. No, so this is not the first step. Thank you, guys. We all agree. Now, let me ask you a question. I will launch a poll, and you should see it on the screen in a few seconds. Have you ever been stressed by the patch management process in the past, or are you stressed about it right now? So you have three options. I've been stressed in the past, but it's now all okay. I've been having some grief and I still have some stress with my patch management process. No, I've always aced my patch management process. So how do you feel about your patch management? And you can literally vote in this. So you should be able to vote the option. Okay. I'm just gonna leave it for 10 more seconds. Okay. Okay, guys. So I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the result with everybody so that you can see it. So the idea is that 63% had issues with patch management, and they still do in some cases. 30% had them, but now it's all okay. And 7%, which is like an ideal category, guys, share what you do with us, have no problem with patch management. They always aced it. So guys, if you want to share best practices, please open a LinkedIn thread, tag us, or send it via email. And I promise I'll send it to everybody else if you want to share it with everybody. So the fact of the matter is, guys, that patching is not easy and it should not be taken lightly. As you see, only 7% of today's audience literally had no problems with it at all. And the majority of the audience say that there were problems and there are still some small problems here and there, which is normal. Don't worry about it. So getting back to the ideal patching landscape. So the main step is the actual deployment of the update to a production system. But as we all agreed, it's not the first step. So let's look at what comes before that. Immediately before that, actually, let's also put the mantra. So it needs to be proactive, holistic, endpoint-centric, automated, and continuous, right? Let's see, what do we need to do before deploying an update for this particular process to be healthy? Well, we actually had somebody saying exactly this. Per, thank you. Deploying updates on a test environment, right? And we'll see the details on each of these. By the way, I hope you like the lack of symmetry, because this slide is not symmetrical at all. Now, before deploying updates on a test environment, I believe that's not the first step, right? So before that, you need to have awareness of what are the vulnerabilities, right? Because you don't just deploy updates out of nothing and just say, oh, I think this program might have an update. No, you need to have a way to know what's vulnerable. And before that, you need to have an inventory. This is the first step in patching, having a full, exhaustive inventory. Because if you don't know what you have, you don't know what could be vulnerable, you don't know what to test, you don't know what to patch. So guys, first step in patch management is knowing what you have to patch. And I will put some more details on all of these. Let's just see what comes after deploying an update to the production system. I believe you guys are all aware that this is not the last step, right? So what comes after is monitoring the successful deployment. So this is very important. Even if you deploy using a tool, whatever tool, you still need to be able to monitor the success of that deployment. And you also need to do reporting so that you can keep compliance. And last but not least, my favorite part of this particular non-symmetrical shape over here is a rinse and repeat process. It's basically never ending. It continues all the time, right? So let's put some more details on this, because this is not all of it, right? Otherwise, I would have put them nicely on the slide. Now, let's see. When we talk about inventory, what's the first thing we need to have in our inventory? What's our hardware, right? Software cannot be without hardware. But when I talk about hardware, I don't mean what are your computers. You need to know everything. So I know we have some managed service providers in the house. We have some software distributors. We have resellers. We even have pure users of the software, like internal IT departments from a company. So the first thing, guys, is know all your hardware, from switches, IoTs, printers, everything. Last but not least, computers and servers, right? Machines. But you need to know everything. Then from the hardware inventory, you can then branch out into what are your operating systems that you are using across your entire computer estate. And only then at the end, you branch out into what is your software estate? What are the applications that you use? Only when you have this holistic view, you know exactly what you need to patch, right? It's not enough just having the software or having the OSs. You need to have all three of them. Now, when it comes to being aware of what's vulnerable, you basically need to make sure you have processes in place, and processes at plural, right? Because hardware will need some processes, software would need some processes, OSs would need some processes. You need to make sure that you're aware of all the present and potential vulnerabilities based on that particular inventory. And we have Philip asking, do this patch management process cover mobile devices, and are they another attack vector that we need to consider? Philip, if the mobile devices are connecting to network resources or company resources, then yes, you do have this as a vulnerability. And if you look at this, let me put a laser pointer. So hardware, this is where you will also list your mobile devices. It's Internet of Things, right? And mobile devices have operating systems. It could be Android or iOS, right? And then you need to make sure that the third-party software on those particular machines, right? Even if it's a phone, it's still a machine, are up to date or are getting updated. And of course, you can use various tools. iOS usually updates itself, usually, so you don't need to worry about that. But you need to have a MDM that limits the user not to install things that they are not approved, and so on and so forth, and to see control. But yes, to answer your question, mobile devices are covered in this particular process. Okay, then I hope I answered the question. If not, just place it there in the question box and I'll continue. Now, this is interesting. Deploying on the test environment, guys. This is so funny because this is very time consuming, but it doesn't need to be. People usually don't do this because it eats away a lot of resources. However, if you do this in 2 steps, 2 easy steps, it should never consume too much resource on your behalf. First step is you need to create or to have production cloned environments, meaning if this particular organization that I'm in has 20 departments, right? And a few servers. So what I need to have in this test environment is a perfect live clone of each of the types of devices. So if I have 10 computers in department 1 that have the same things on them, same settings, same applications, same user role, then I need to have one clone of those 10 computers. If I have a manager's computer in that department that has a bit of a different approach in software and everything, I need to have another clone of that computer. So once I have all these clones made, and this is again based on the inventory, guys, inventory is the most important thing here, right? So after I have this and I have created, or I do have the cloned computers, I will do an automatical 24/7 patch test environment. And only when I see new information, new patches in my reports that the test environment received, I then test all their applications and their processes, which should be a list, right? What do you do at work? What applications do you open, right? So I test those, and then if nothing breaks, in that moment, I am 100% sure that that hardware update, like firmware, or that OS update, or that software update will not impact my production unit, because at the end of the day, a business needs to run. Computers are here to help humans do their job. So if a computer is down, the company is losing money in that moment. So that's what we want to avoid. Now, how would we do this? We can do it, right, as IT, as a managed service provider and so on, or smarter. You can have some people, right, that are very, very IT savvy in those respective teams, and you can consider or their computers or virtual machines clones from their computers as the test environment. So they know how to quickly react, they know how to take another computer and continue work, and they know how to notify you if something happened. So this is a key step, guys. If you want to risk it a bit, there are a few cases out there in the world where this could actually break your productivity, but this doesn't happen all day long. And if we go a bit and ask ourselves, when did this last happen? I believe it was print nightmare, when all the computers had blue screen and nobody could connect to their computers across the world, affected about 40% of computers across the world. And that was an OS update. People that had the test environment and a hold on the production environment did not face any problems with print nightmare. So I would like all of you to be in the category of the people that did not face any problem. And this is how you do it. Next up, deploying on production systems. So again, looking at the inventory, we need to have a few components here, right? When it comes to hardware, we always suggest doing manual updates. This is a bit dangerous not to do manual updates, right? Usually with hardware, it's a bit difficult to do automated updates by default. It's a combination between a manual and semi-automatic way. But when it comes to the other ones, OS and software, you should do automated and scheduled updates for operating systems and automated and scheduled updates for third-party software, only in an ideal fashion, only if the testing was successful, right? Some people automate 80% of the OS updates and just leave about 20% for testing, like the dangerous updates, like drivers and upgrades. Some other people automate 90% of their software updates, but just keep 10%, which are software that if I update this, it can break this other thing, like Java, for example, Java, depending on the pronunciation, right? Or Adobe, something like that. So there's no ideal way. Looking at this, it's like you don't need to follow this. You need to match this with what your company needs, right? Now, when it comes to monitoring the successful deployment of updates, what's important, it is to validate successful install, and the ones that did not successfully install, you need to have a plan for them. You need to know why they didn't install, and you need to know when it's the next attempt to install. And last but not least, when it comes to reporting, you need to have recurring reports for compliance and also for the activity reports. So if you look at the patching tool, it kind of needs to help you with the majority of this. No patching tool in the world, and this is something I can promise, can do all of this for you, because patch management is not just the updating part. It's a process. It's like privilege access management. It's an entire strategy of the company that does use some tools in order to make it happen. But this is not just tools, it's also you and the way you formulate this process for you. And the rinse and repeat means whenever you have new hardware, whenever you have new software, whenever you have anything new, it needs to go through inventory, be added in the inventory. Then you need to make sure you know where you can see if there's anything vulnerable and so on, right? So you need to make sure that you can follow all of this snake type of flow that I made here. And with this snake flow, you need to make sure that this new item that you have in your inventory can actually be a part of it. If not, it's a problem. So knowing this information, it actually makes me wonder. Oh, by the way, guys, the ones that I put the Heimdal head on right now, these are things that Heimdal can help you with, right? Even about this part with process to ensure that we take care of the vulnerabilities. But aside of Heimdal, you will also have other hardware, other software that might not be captured in Heimdal. Heimdal shows you what's not captured, but then you need to make the processes to capture those as well. So just wanted to show you guys a glance of what Heimdal can help you with when it comes to this ideal scenario. Now, before I go into a bit of features here, I wanted to ask you a question. related to this, what you're seeing right now on the screen. Now, after this active refresher, do you think your patch management game will improve? And the options are, yes, I can implement some of the things that I've seen here. I'm really not sure, I need more clarity. And no, I was already well aware of all of this and I'm doing it. And I like that the scale of responses are changing over here. Okay, I'll just give you guys a few more seconds so that we can go in the Q&A. Okay, so stopping the vote, and I am super happy to see that 70% of the audience that responded to the poll can actually take some of this session and have it as a value add. That's exactly what I wanted to see. 11%, the people that need more clarity, guys, post webinar feedback form, you have an option, book a 15 minutes meeting with me. We can discuss more, we can look at it together, we can analyze what you're doing right now, and I can help you with, again, vendor agnostic type of advice. And last but not least, 19%, which again makes me very happy, says, no, I was already aware of all of this. This means that you guys have a healthy patch management process, which is not an easy effort. It's difficult to have something like that. So I respect you for having that. Now, next up, I took a slide from the Heimdal presentation deck. I wanted to draw your attention to this part. These are some features that you could have from when using Heimdal. So Heimdal will do third-party updates, zero interruptions, silent on the fly, automatic deployment, redeployment, covers all the updates possible, ability to delay, version manage, and rollback. Generally, we do full inventory management, so we show you all software. We can help you install apps remotely and also do a software catalog for your users. Uninstall of only supported apps. We clean, test, and then we make a patch available for you in less than 4 hours. So we do not release patches which are actually dangerous. We check them for malware and we test them for functionality. And of course, you can schedule updates. When it comes to Microsoft, you can push any Microsoft update, suppress, postpone, or delay, reboot, schedule, and all of these things. And we do have a lot of customers using the Heimdal Patch Management tool. I just wanted to show you some features here. I will not stick too much on this one. Now, next up, I wanted to have some key takeaways from this session, guys, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. So we're gonna go into the extended very soon. Okay, so the key takeaways. Critical and exploitable vulnerabilities are increasing year over year, unfortunately. The patching process, which is not an option if you care about cybersecurity, starts way before updating of software or firmware. Patch and patch management are never-ending processes, which can be very stressful and could enable cyber attacks if done poorly. And last but not least, you do have a document in the handouts section. You can download it. This is basically a data sheet of our patching product. Now, we're gonna go into the Q&A, and let's see, we have some questions here in the chat. Let me hide this pointer option. Come on, no? Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's see, questions. Saima, I like your question. More details about the value of Heimdal Patch Management. We can talk about that, right? I know we can connect with your channel account manager and myself and do a short one and talk about the advantages of it. Yeah, let's see. Pre and post script before installs reboot. Ron, could you give me more details on this one? We can do pre and post install scripting. That's possible. But could you please give me more details? I'll move to the next question until you do. Are updates shown in Heimdal console with the respective CVE scores? Simon, yes. You have CVE article. You can click on it and go to NIST, right, to see the article. And you also have its impact score. So you can filter by that. Klaus, great session. I must leave earlier. Step into the next team meeting. Thank you, Klaus. Enjoy. Okay, Ron, any more details on the pre and post scripting? Simon asks, can you apply updates based on the CVE score? You can filter your updates by that, and then you can approve just those to be applied. You can do it like that. We usually recommend doing it fully automatical. We don't have a, let's say, automate whatever has over 9 score, because in history, Simon, and I can share some exact CVEs, there were situations in which an update that had 7 impact score caused a worldwide cyber pandemic. And there were situations, and still are, with updates that have 9.9 impact score that had no exploits in the wild. So it's not an ideal way of doing it. Even those impact scores are subjective sometimes. So that's why we would never recommend doing it like that. But we can talk about it if you think it's a great idea. Okay, is it possible to install and patch third-party, I believe, servers which are not supported by the default Heimdal? Is it softwares or servers, Yulia? Software. So this is the question. Is it possible to patch software that is not supported by Heimdal? Yes. So aside of Heimdal doing automated patching for over 150 applications, we can also give you an add-on to the patching that you can literally deploy any software that you want, as long as it can be done silently without interrupting the user.